One of the biggest relational issues is people choose the wrong people to begin with. They're choosing people out of fear.
What's your experience with this story that there's no men doing the work?
You don't get the guy to do the work. Even without overtly saying it, she's saying that however you are now is not enough. When that woman reorients herself to that energy actually inspires him, and he can feel she's in her space, and now he's able to make a choice of what is the most authentic path for him.
That's like a completely new life experience.
When a man is not in his power in a relationship, it's because he's never been able to
Welcome to the Authentic Man podcast. I am your host, David Chambers. This is a podcast for men who want more and less from life. More deep connection, more emotional intelligence, more self-awareness, and more great sex. And less. Less heartache, less conflict, less overthinking, and less stress. Creating dating lives, sex lives, and relationships that are incredible and authentic. My deepest goal is that you, the listener, can take away what you hear in this podcast and apply it to your life so that you can experience greater happiness, transformational growth, deeper relationships, and profound sexual intimacy. I believe that as men, we are capable of so much more depth than we are shown or led to believe. So join me as we get deep into this. Welcome back to another episode of the Authentic Man podcast. I'm your host, David Chambers. I'm a men's dating, relation, intimacy coach, really guiding men to deeper experience of themselves and the women that they date. And today, I have a wonderful guest with me, a man called Jamie Ray, someone who I followed on Instagram for quite a lot. He's a real big character with a lot of energy, right? And we talk a lot about energy in how we kind of bring our energy and start to use our energy for a force of good and service in the world. But we actually dive into a couple of topics and we weave through a few more around, starting off with the topic that's I'm asked about a lot, like how do I get my man to do the work? And me and Jamie probably have quite a radical view on this of how to do that. But it's a wonderful bit of conversation. And then we dive into like what it means to live a spiritual life. Like, how do we live a spiritual life? And again, it's not what you think it's going to be, It's not the stuff that necessarily looks spiritual. I wouldn't think you would look at me or Jamie if you saw us walking down the street together that we were particularly spiritual people. So we dive into that, and then we lean into a topic that I listened to a live that Jamie did a little while ago around anger. And really this kind of, sacred anger, you could call it. You call it anger of energy, of leadership, of clarity, as I kind of call it towards the end. But this like harnessing of anger to build our lives, to become more trustable, to be more boundaried and so forth. And I think it's a really important part of the conversation for you to listen to. You're going to get a lot out of that because it's going to really shift how you see anger and how you relate to anger as a thing as well. And as a source of power. But yeah, I've got nothing else to say, actually. I'm going to say is let you dive in. Let you dive into the episode. Hello, Jamie. Welcome to the podcast. How are you doing today?
David, I'm doing great, man. Thank you for having me on. I'm ready to drop some fucking F-bombs here. Let's go, buddy.
I love, I have this thing I always tell my guests, like, you can always swear as much as you like, because I always get really, I've been on a few podcasts and then I've been like, for fuck's sake. And then they look on the host's face and I'm like, holy shit, they don't swear. But no, in here, all language is welcome. People express themselves as they freely need to and want to.
I feel like it'd be weirder if something happened. You're like, oh gosh, darn it, dang it. I'd be like, that's where I would have a look of shock on my face. And also, David, I'm in a particularly unleashed mood for some reason this morning. When kind of the filter really feels off. So this could get dangerous here.
All right, then let's just dive in there. So I reached out to you because there was a particular video you were talking about women wanting their men to do the work. And this is a question I get like weekly, right? I've worked with a lot of, especially like avoidant men. So their women come to me and go, hey, can I have the details to coach with you? Can I book a call for my boyfriend, husband? And I'm always like, has he consented to this? Like, are you trying to non-consensually make him do coaching? Like, that's not quite right. But
right.
I wanted to start with the question of like, what do you see? What do you experience with women? Because I know you work with women as well, around this story, narrative, idea, even truth that is often put out by women, especially on Instagram, I find, of like, there's no men doing the work.
Mm-hmm. Well, first off, if you're a spiritual, I'll just start off with this polarizing statement right off the hop. If you're a spiritual woman, you have to be with a spiritual man. And if you're a spiritual woman and you're not with a spiritual man, then either as a woman, your spirituality is not embodied or you're not actually spiritual. So again, if you're a spiritual woman not with a spiritual man, your spirituality is either not embodied or you're not actually spiritual. You know, maybe you're like a little fucking Instagram spirituality where I'm going to, have some nice, pretty crystals. We're going to pull a tarot card on the full moon and just kind of like post photos of my fucking cacao ceremony. Maybe we're that type of spirituality. But if you're a spiritual woman, you have to be with a spiritual man. And the piece that I think is really big with this is women are trying to get men to do the work. What they're doing is they're invading his space. As you talk about, they're reaching out to you on his behalf. They're already emasculating him. They're already invading his space, which is what it's doing. Is actually prodding and provoking the collective masculine wound that no matter what he does, it's not good enough. You're prodding and provoking the collective masculine wound that whatever he does is not good enough. Where is the collective feminine wound is that no matter what she does, she can't be seen, heard for who she really is. Right. So these women, as we talk about, they're moving into the guy's space. Right. They're moving into the guy's space. So he's like, what the fuck? She's coming into my space. She's emasculating me, which is already off the hop going to create resentment in the guy that some aspect of who he is not enough. Some aspect of who he has to do more. And it's going to provoke and prod that collective masculine wound again, that it's not enough. And so I think it comes back to, and I think you were relating to my post with the feminine in space. The feminine has to come back to her space, right? She has to come back to her space, come back to the sovereignty of her space. And then she's going to actually have to face head on the fact that a man might not be able to meet her, right? She's got to face head on that this man might not be able to meet her needs. But she goes into his space to avoid having to even have that question come up into the space. If she's invading his space, trying to get him to do the work, she doesn't have to answer that question. It gets to live in the unconscious. It gets to live just underneath the surface. But when she comes back to her space, she really has to come back into reality and truth. So the short answer is you don't fucking get the guy to do the work. You don't get him to do the work. Ideally, you're choosing someone who's already going down a similar path to you, who's already doing work on themselves, all these things right off the hop. But the job of the feminine is to inspire the hunter, right? So inspire the hunter means you inspire him from your feminine energy. But if you're all of a sudden moving into his space, all of a sudden you're in your masculine energy and he's turned off. He's no longer attracted, and it's going to bring up his own sort of mother wound and mommy wound that whatever he does is not enough. And so the feminine's got to come back to her own space. She's got to reclaim her own space, right? And when it comes to, women got to choose a guy who's spiritual and not choosing a guy who's spiritual, the feminine code goes first, which means that if women want to be able to, call in a divine masculine, they have to become the oracle. They have to embody their spirituality all the way through their body and system, not actually just a sort of like vanity spirituality, but they have to be able to embody it. So, again, coming back to that, don't get the guy to do the work. Come back to your own fucking space and your own sort of sovereignty.
Yeah. And I guess the question maybe out that is, what is being spiritual for a woman or a man? Like, what is it? Because we see on Instagram, we've got this, like you said, it's this like vanity spirituality where you wear the clothes that look spiritual. Maybe you go to festivals that look spiritual, and you do your hair a certain way, and you know, go to cacao ceremonies and stuff. But like, what is real deep spiritual practice?
To me, it's just truth. It's just fucking authenticity. And here's something else that might be polarizing. I think if you're having to do all those practices to tap into truth, you're not actually tapped in. If you're having to do all these people talk about, I'm on the mat in my spiritual practice. I have no fucking idea what that even means. When people are like, I'm on the mat meditating, I'm like, what are you doing? You know what I mean? I don't even understand that. So I think if you have to do incessant spiritual practice, you're not actually spiritual. It's kind of like you're putting on jewelry. You know what I mean? When you go to a cacao ceremony, it's kind of like you're wearing a ring and you're trying to peacock a little bit, or you're pulling a tarot card. It's kind of like, I'm going to wear a lavender scent tonight. You know what I mean? I'm going to pull a tarot card. When at the core of it, it's just like, who the fuck are you? What is your truth? What is your authenticity and your capacity to allow the full volume of who you are to move through your body? And so we have all these adornments and these different things that we do. And I think what it can create is that we become so self-reliant on these practices, and it becomes this sort of hyper discipline, this sort of mechanical discipline. I got to do this. I got to be on the mat. And then now all of a sudden we're in this mechanical sort of hyper earthly disciplined approach to try and channel God, when really just what it is what is your truth and what is your deepest authenticity? And what does that look like for you?
And that's a big question for people, right? Because we live in a world which is constantly telling us what our truth should be. You know, we see on Instagram, we're watching the news, we talk to other people. So like we're bombarded with, from a very young age, of like what our truth should be, who we should be. So the question that comes to my mind is like, okay, how do we descend into, because I feel it's more of a descent than like a shedding of layers, and to come to our authenticity and our kind of personal truth? And I know that's a big question, right? But, I'd love to get your insights and your thoughts.
Yeah. Well, obviously in a very simple sort of like earthly answer as a first part to that, it's like get your fucking ass to therapy and start doing work on yourself, start, working with a somatic therapist, start doing body work, start getting into embodiment practices, all those sort of things. But, it's really about getting lost in the forest. You know what I mean? Really allowing yourself to be lost. Like if we think about the process and what I've learned with the process of coming into union with source, God, the universe, whatever you want to call it, it's this process of allowing yourself to be lost and confused constantly. So I don't know what's happening. Oh shit, a revelation just hit my nutsack all of a sudden out of nowhere. I have no idea what's happening. I'm lost. I'm confused. All of a sudden I got that little vibration. I feel like I got angels in my ass. All of a sudden something's coming, and there's a new sort of realm and vibration of consciousness that's revealing itself. But we don't kind of get bestowed those answers unless we allow ourselves voluntarily, willingly to be lost. Right. So we're always trying to like fill that space, make it seem like we have our shit together, make it seem like we know what we're doing. And then what happens is we don't really get to live a soulfully fulfilling life when we do that. We work some job. That's okay. We don't get to like carve out our passions. And so the prerequisite is you got to get lost, and you got to literally get a machete and you got to carve your own path. Right. So get lost. And that's where a deeper revelation begins to come. Right? When you allow yourself, I don't know what's happening, I'm confused, there's a deeper layer of God and source that's trying to be revealed.
I'm hearing there like an openness, right? It's like, I'm lost. I don't know anything. Like I'm letting go of the ideas of what I think is true and not true about myself, reality, people, the sky. So I'm open. I'm like open to just allowing in. Like my mind's open, my mind's wide. I'm, we say lost. I think of like my years where, I spent a couple of years traveling in many ways. I was just wandering and I was lost because I would just move from place to place. And I feel at that time, I was so open to just like observing the simple beauties of life, you know, seeing a bee or like finding a nice bit of artwork on a wall in Colombia and just like sitting there for 10, 15 minutes. And like that for me felt like incredible openness to the world and to people and to like what could come through me.
Yeah. Well, like David, like I always say that we have to get punched in the dick before God is going to jump on our dick. Right. So you have to go through shit and kind of get fucking railed a little bit by God and source before you start to work with flow in the universe. And so, you know, speaking off what you were saying there is I think people are afraid to have their paradigm of consciousness poked and prodded at, you know, so we try and safeguard it. Like think about someone who's hyper Christian and, you know, they don't want anyone to say anything that is going to poke and prod at what they believe to be true. That's where we're trying to gridlock our known perceived level of consciousness, which is really just fear and the ego trying to hold on to something. So when I think of living a spiritual life, it's being willing to have your consciousness poked and prodded at. And it's being able to live in a way, which is, and this is often a very anti-religious way, is what I see as the spiritual way. You're able to have your level of consciousness poked and prodded at, to have more blind spots revealed to you, to have more truth revealed to you, to have deeper layers of freedom revealed to you. And so often we have like a spiritual ego and we're trying to gridlock and safeguard our perceived paradigm of consciousness out of fear. And so I think when we talk about living a spiritual life, and you were talking about the word curiosity, I think that's huge, is that we can be curious about things that we don't understand. And we can allow things that we don't understand to enter our field.
And to question even the things that we think we understand from the place of real curiosity of like, I don't know if this is true. Like, is this wall next to me actually here? I don't know. Maybe it is here. How can I investigate the truth of that? Which, and as you said, it flies very much in the face of religion, because religion's very much like, this is the fucking truth, man. Don't fucking ask any questions about this. I've told you this is the truth. Read the book, do what the book says, then do what your pastor says, or minister, or imam, whatever religion you follow.
100%. So it's being able to be wrong, but also what I feel like comes with that too, David, is that there is a level of like, and this might sound a little self-righteous, and I don't mean in that way, but there is a level of all-knowing that comes, that starts to live through you. And so it's almost like, say you're talking about a wall, you don't know if that wall exists, but there's an all-knowing inside of you as well. So I kind of feel like spirituality plays in this juxtaposition of you don't know what's true, but you do know what's true. And so you're constantly in this space of, I don't actually know if this is correct, but I know it's correct. Because, and I think what happens with that is you learn how energy works, and you've seen how energy works, and you understand the energetics. And so much of my work has been about learning and understanding. Say if the deity of God were an energetic frequency that moved and alchemized through time and space through the body in this transformative type process, how would that work? And so understanding the laws of energetics is kind of what I've had to do with my work. And it really does play in that space of, we don't actually know if this is a case, but intuitively we're all knowing that this is the case. Does that make sense?
Yeah. It's always, but there's also a point there, and I guess what I'm thinking is this is also probably the lens that kind of religions don't take that lens. They take the lens of like, we are all knowing. And should we to live a spiritual life, even though we have this intuition and knowing, we should still be curious, right? Because we have to also have the discernment to know between the knowing and our pain and trauma and beliefs, which often I see a lot of people being like, oh, I met this person and I intuitively knew they weren't for me as soon as I met them. And I'm always like, my little beady eyes are like, or were you just a bit like insecure about how this person made you feel because, you know, they're doing things you want to do, whatever it may be. I work with people in relationship a lot. Like we have to kind of, it sounds like, and I guess a question for you, do we need to learn the discernment for ourselves between the knowing, the like internal knowing we feel and the kind of pain and trauma that often kind of directs our lives.
100%. And so, I mean, even just if you think about religion, right? Think about if you grew up in a home and you have a very powerful, authoritative figure as a father, right? He's like, you have to do what I say. You have to be obedient to me. So that father has basically manifested himself as God in the household. And in psychology, a lot of time they talk about when there's a very authoritative, almost a dictator type parent, that it takes away the kid's capacity to engage in a greater spiritual relationship, because now that greater spiritual relationship has been superimposed in the authoritative figure of the father or a mother. And so it takes away the child's capacity to believe in a higher power. And I feel religion does that in some way, where they make this book and these things that have been passed down as all knowing, and it takes all sovereignty and all knowing away from each individual. Right. So now we're, rather than engaging in a spiritual relationship, we've kind of externalized and manifested our capacity for spirituality to this orchestration or this structure or this thing, which is the same thing that can happen in like a household, which it takes away our own capacity for discernment, for understanding, because my belief is about empowering each individual to engage with their own relationship with source. And this is something where gurus always want to remain in a power imbalance, but actually allowing people to move into their own power, instilling people with the capability to move into their own power. And we move into God and the divine when we heal and integrate a certain level of our trauma, right? So now we can actually discern what's my intuition, the voice of God, and what's actually my trauma, what's actually my wounding, what's actually my pain. But before you do any of that work, you're like, I know this is my person. We're meant to be together. Then you get in this very volatile trauma bond relationship. You're like, oh shit, maybe I was wrong. And then you go and do a bunch of work. And so you have to do so much trauma work to even find the paradigm of God. You have to do so much trauma work, ancestral healing work, to even find the paradigm of God. You know, it's kind of the process. I'm like, I know this is God. I know this is it, God. And you walk down the path, you're like, oh shit, fucking Satan fucked me again. You know, you're like, okay, got to go back to the healing drawing board here, do some more work. I know this is it. I know this is a yellow brick road. No. Oh my God. You know, a fucking just demon just fucking took over my body. This is not it. I got to go further down the path. I got to go deeper. And so there's so much trauma that we have to descend into to even find the initial thread, vibration, and chord of God. And that may be a very potentially disempowering thing for people to hear, of how much work we have to do to find it. But that is the truth. And so often and I did this so many times on the path, you know, where you misconstrue your trauma and your karma for God and the divine. You misconstrue, and to separate those two, it takes so much personal work. And, you know, a good example is people in the twin flame movement. People talking about twin flames, you know, and twin flames are kind of like three divine. It's like before we've experienced a huge relational rupture to finally actually meet God. Twin flames is like the last stop on the devil train, the last stop on the karma train. But everyone's like, this is God. This is it. No, it's a trauma bond in the ancestral realm. It's a trauma bond in the spirit realm, right? And so that's again where our ego, our trauma, our attachment wounding is misconstruing the voice of God.
Yeah. I find a lot of the twin flame conversation to be like, almost any time I speak to someone, they're like, oh, I've met my twin flame. And then they suddenly give me all the stuff, and all it is like, it's basically the perfect match for two people's really dysfunctional attachment styles to come together. Like, oh, there's so much chemistry, and there's like, oh, there's all these synchronicities in our lives and these similarities. It's like, no, you just guys got a lot of fucking trauma, and it bonded you together because you feel like, man, we're both fucked up together. Isn't this great?
You know, twin flames are basically like trauma. It's like your trauma's jacked up on like steroids. Like your trauma just, you know, took a good fucking hit of some like testosterone or something, and then you kind of come together. But and you see them talking about it. It's the same fucking thing as religion, right? It's the same thing talking to someone who like is a devout twin flame believer. It's the same thing as talking to a Christian who fucking, you know, at home has a little baby Jesus manger at a nativity scene. It's the same thing psychologically as talking to them, because they're like, don't tell me that twin flames don't exist. It's this hyper protection of our known level of consciousness, right? Again, we talked about spirituality is allowing your consciousness to be poked and prodded at. If a Christian was truly spiritual, they'd be able to watch something on atheism and have an open mind. If someone believed in twin flames, they'd be able to watch a documentary saying twin flames are a load of garbage, and they'd have an open mind about it, right? But they don't want their consciousness to be poked and prodded at. And so it's very much this idealized, fantasized, you know, steroid infused fantasy escape of this is my deliverance. This is my salvation. That's what we're looking to be saved, right? Same thing when people go fucking believe in Jesus. We're looking to be saved because we haven't been able to save ourselves in some capacity. There's some lack of wholeness and our own sovereignty within ourselves. And so that's why we're seeking this sort of higher vibrational escape.
Mm-hmm. And the ego still has an attachment to the idea, right? So say when we're kind of we're Christian or we're twin flame, right? We have our ego has an attachment to the idea. So when the idea gets attacked, ego flares up and wants to attack. Whereas when, as you're saying there, we step into really being spiritual and really holding things, I like to say holding things lightly, with curiosity, when someone does pod and poke our ideas, we're like, oh, great. This is an opportunity for learning and deepening my understanding of myself and source and what information's coming to us.
Totally right. And so if we think about like, there's that big ego protection. What's on the other side of that big ego protection? You know, when think of like a peacock, the feathers flare. It's like, you know what I mean? What's on the other side of that ego protection is perceived death. Right? Perceived death. This is why I often talk about that we need to experience a really big relational attachment rupture. And that relational attachment rupture can be with the family of origin. It can be romantic. It can be with your ancestors. But we need a really big relational attachment rupture of a situation where the ego is like, this is it, and have that kind of eradicate and crumble underneath you. So that you can move back into a space where you don't know anything, but you actually experience that really big initial death in the system, which what it does is you die and you're reborn. It's karma to the divine, but now you're no longer afraid and you actually understand how God works and you can alchemize anything. So when you experience that big, like say you're like with your twin flame and it doesn't work and you have to go through the pain of untangling from that, you would have thought this twin flame is your salvation for God. But the untangling and losing them was actually the true deliverance of God in your life. And now in the untangling of that, you're going to be able to alchemize anything in your life. Something bad's going to happen. You're going to get knocked and keeled over, but then you're going to be able to reorient to God really, really quickly because your system's going to have a malleability from that rupture to be able to reorient and move to God. But before that ego gets shattered, the spiritual ego, it's very fixed. It's very like things have to be this way. And what we're doing is we're protecting against death of something in the system, something in the nervous system.
Yeah. And I suppose this is also what happens to a lot of men when they find a woman and they're like, this woman, they fall deeply, madly, head over heels, and they find themselves, the relationship breaks down for whatever reason, and they're heartbroken. They literally, crack wide open is often the phrase. And it sounds like from what you're saying, there's one way to go. There's maybe more than one way to go, but I'm hearing it's like we can lean in and realize like that relationship wasn't good or that way of relating isn't good. And I can reiterate towards what God and source. But there's also another direction people kind of take sometimes, which is like doubling down as well, right? On what they already believe and really holding on even more tightly to it. Is that something you also see?
Yeah, well, it's like, so if you think about, so what we've kind of talked about here, the individual, say the individual path that people are walking down, it's the preparatory work to really understanding how to love. To really because if we think about, in the most idealistic way, we would move into a relationship when we want the relationship to be a space of infinite expansion, where we get to amplify and activate each other to step in our true potential. Easier said than done, right? Easier said than done. And so the process that I'm talking about is experiencing enough break and integrating of your deepest attachment wounding. Because if you think about true love, we have to look at the proportional variation of attachment and love, right? And so much of codependency is where attachment is so much stronger, it's so misconstrued with this idea of love. And we want to get into a place where love, the vibration of love and the discernment of choosing someone, amplifying someone is so much greater than the attachment or need, right? Obviously, we are going to be attached to someone. It is present. But if the attachment is so strong, fear is going to run rampant in that relationship, and we're not going to love fiercely. We're going to conceal. We're going to contract our truth. We're going to do everything that we can to not rock the boat, to keep the peace, to minimize, to mitigate, because we knew if there were to be a rupture here, our system is anticipating the threat of that death. But if you've gone through a rupture as this, you've kind of gone through that, and your system's not afraid of that in the same way, which can allow you to be more in your truth, to be more direct about what you want, your needs, to live in a sort of higher vibrational energy of we're going to live in total truth in this relationship. And, if it comes a point where it's really, really not working, then it's a little more digestible to walk away because you've gone through that rupture versus if you've just been holding on. Think about the amount of couples that you just know they'll never break up. Those couples, you just, no matter what, you could never see one person breaking up with the other person. And that's because attachment is just like they're gripping like this. And so even if the relationship was bad or okay, they're going to be mediocre till death do us part because attachment is so strong, right? And so we want to get into a place where we can love in this truest vibration of who we are, and it actually becomes a choice that I'm already full. I'm already sovereign in my own energy with God and source, but I know that choosing you through an active choice of discernment is going to amplify my spiritual experience.
Yeah, powerful. And I love that because that's where we're with someone not just purely because like you said, there's always going to be some strands of attachment, right? But we're with someone to love and expand love in ourselves and in that person and take kind of like amplifying in a kind of, what am I thinking of? Like the infinity sign where it's like it's growing. We're moving the energy between us and we're growing as beings, and that energy starts to expand beyond us. And it's not just kind of being eaten by the two of us trying to take and get from each other so we can hang on to the relationship. And it made me think as you were talking there, it's like even what we were talking about before about the kind of the women who are like wanting their man to do the work. It's like an example of that like attachment and gripping on. They're, and I'm not saying it's only women. Yeah. Ladies, listen to this. I have men who come to me for coaching and they want their women to do the work. But it's kind of speaks into something I said to someone recently about this question about women wanting their men to do the work. I was like, you have to be willing, if you're with a man and you want him to do the work and he's not doing it, you have to be willing to allow the relationship to die and see it's more important that he does the work than necessarily stays with you, because leaving you may be the relationship crumbling may be the very catalyst to him doing the work. So you often have to ask yourself, is like, do I want to be with my partner, Or what's more important, them doing the work and growing and evolving, or me holding on to me being with them? And if we're more attached to the second, I believe the first thing is less likely to happen.
Right. Well, like, so I love what you're saying there, because say like a woman's trying to get a guy to do the work. She's emasculating him. She's moving into his space, even without consciously or overtly saying it. She's saying that however you are now is not enough. That's what he's hearing. That's what he's hearing. And so that is not going to inspire him to do the work. And that is actually her coming through her own attachment and self-preservation, rather than what's going to be in the highest order of this guy, what's going to allow him to move into his highest evolution. And I'll say this too, and there's so many things I want to say based off what you said there. Oftentimes, when a man is not in his power in a relationship, when he's not in his masculine, it's because he's never been able to feel himself out in the world. He's never been able to feel in his masculine full volume and totality out in the world. And that's usually because of different attachments, different fear, right? It's that whole thing where he's in a situation where he's allowing a woman to come into his space. So, and he probably had a mom who invaded his space when he was young, energetically. And so he probably had boundary invaders when he's young. So this is now proking and providing an early wound from him that said he's not enough, which is going to fill him with shame, which is not going to put him in his masculine. It's going to disempower him even more. And so if they were to experience a rupture, he would finally actually be free, even if it's painful, because now he can feel himself out in the world and he can choose from his own power. And he can choose from his own power. And then what would happen was he could really decide, do I want to claim that woman or do I not want to claim her? Do I want to claim her when she's in her own space? When she's in her own space. And so for women, that is about moving into a full energetic exchange with God. And if she's trying to get her man to do the work, she probably chose the wrong guy to begin with. I think that's one of the biggest relational issues is people choose the wrong people to begin with. And it's because they're choosing people from not the full aspect of their power and potential, right? They're choosing people out of fear. They're choosing people from an internal contraction. And so when that woman reorients herself to God and she allows the full vibration of source and God to move through her, and she's experienced that attachment rupture and reoriented her system with God, now that energy actually inspires him. He's like, holy shit, she's radiant. She's the oracle of life. He can, and we talk about the number one thing men are looking for is space. She's in her space with God. She's not moving into space at all. So now he can start to feel himself. She's like, I'm in my power, and she's able to choose from her own sovereignty. And in that, she's able to ask herself the question, can this fucker meet my needs? Can this guy see me in the way that I've created this relationship with God and source already? And she's able to choose with that level of honesty in her system, right? And so, and he can feel she's in her space. And now he's able to make a choice inside of himself of what is the most authentic path for him.
And that, for a man like that, that's like a completely new life experience, right? If he's had, like you said, a mother who's been encroaching on his boundaries, and he probably then met women who encroach on his boundaries, this is like a man who's like, I feel like for some reason I'm thinking like a man unsheathed.
Yeah, well, like think about that experience, you know, when all of a sudden you're like, you don't feel a woman hooking into you. She's not hooking into you anymore, and she feels radiant, and you look on her cheeks and it like looks like she's been, you know, fucked by God all morning. You're like, holy shit. Like that hits your body in a different way. You're like, what is going on here? And now you're inspired. You're inspired, right? So women always make the first move. Women always make the first move. But the problem is women don't know how to make the first move. You got to make the first move by you inspire a man by embodying the oracle within you. And then now a man who's out in the world who's really engaging, feeling himself, feeling his power out in the world, building shit. And he's looking for an oracle. Who's going to inspire my mission? Who's going to amplify the kingdom that I'm trying to create? And when he sees a woman who's reoriented to God and is in her sovereignty and radiance, and he feels inspired, she's the well and source of life. And she's not going to move into his space. She actually has the capacity to see him. And then when a woman's in that space, first she begins to see herself, which then is the preparatory sort of prototype work to find a man who actually has the capacity to see you and choose you, because now you're choosing from abundance and love, not fear and scarcity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And the choice from fear and scarcity is rife in people. Like, you know, we're looking, as you said, we're looking to hook into people to fulfill our needs or our dysfunctions and all this. And I see this as like the way that most people are dating in the world is like, how can I find someone who kind of like, in my opinion, it's like, how can I find someone who makes me feel better about myself?
Totally. Like, we're all trying to find people to be saved. And like, when you think about spiritual people, what we're doing is we're looking for someone to deliver us into the greatest spiritual experience of our life. That's like twin flames. Twin flames are like spiritual people who are looking for this spiritual fantasy that is going to be the be all to end all thing that's going to like fully deliver them into their spiritual salvation and divinity. Right? But what sacred union is two human beings who have created this sovereign spiritual experience with themselves and can choose from the fullness of that spiritual experience within themselves and have a greater source of discernment, which now becomes this active choice, this active, I'm already full, but you can take me deeper. And now it becomes a deeper act of surrender and choosing and a deeper act of deliverance and activation. But, you know, that's what we're looking for is a spiritual experience. So we're looking to be alleviated from our suffering, right? So rather than like choosing relationships from fullness in our life, we're choosing from some form of lack, right? And that's where most relationships are chosen from, unless maybe we come from like a really secure attachment. But if we come from really dysregulated attachment systems, it's going to be so much attachment wounding is enthralled in the kind of potion of love. And so the way I really see it is a level of sovereignty to heal and integrate a level of attachment in our system so that love can prevail and move more into an orientation of true love.
To bring in the sovereignty. Sovereignty allows the release of the shackles of true loving to move through us, for us to love and be loved.
Completely.
Yeah. And I know I mentioned this to you before we jumped on, and it kind of leads me into this piece around anger, right? Because often we have this experience of anger. And I know for you, anger is tied in quite closely with the sovereignty. But we often have this experience of anger as, you know, a lot of us grew up in homes where, you know, my home was no one really was angry. You know, I grew up in a house of women, so no one really got angry. My dad would get angry on the phone and shout and then would kind of pretend like nothing happened 2 days later, which was like really bizarre for me as a child. I always remember, or we grew up with this like rage where someone comes in the house and starts throwing shit around. We had this really negative experience of anger. So many people in society, we have this fear of anger. Like any sort of anger, especially in a man, is like, get the fuck back, you're dangerous, let's lock you in a cell, right? But your take on anger and why it's so important to our sovereignty is very different. I'd love to share with the listeners.
Yeah. So, you know, if we talk about anger as an energetic sort of frequency, when you really begin to move into your like feminine essence or your masculine essence, when you really contact that, there's going to be a level of primal rage that comes through you. And so when you really start to move into your divine masculine essence or your divine feminine essence, there's going to be a primal rage, which is essentially your full volume and energetic capacity of your power is being accessed, unfiltered, unfettered, and unhinged. And so it enters your space like a primal fever fire, right? Which then needs to move through the body and be integrated, move with the heart, move with all the other chakras and energy centers. But when it enters your body and space, it is a primal rage. And a big reason, and I'll talk about this at a higher level first. If we think about the ancestral realm, right? So think about how the feminine and the masculine intertwined in their power in our lineage, right? And so if we really look at that in our lineage, for example, say you're a man that's trying to move into a healthy integration of your anger, what you're also saying is you're trying to move into your total power, your total expression, your total power, right? But if the men in your line maybe were hurtful to women in some way, that women had their voices taken away, that women were abused, whatever it is, we're going to be afraid of the full masculine power and potential we have because we don't want to carry out the karma from the lineage, right? And so now the work, if we're talking about working with at an ancestral level, is working with the maternal ancestors to provide reassurance and evidence that this power and frequency is going to be different. That this power is not going to be used to take the voices away from women, to contract the feminine oracle. It's going to be used to empower, right? And about showing the women that we're in a healthy integration of masculine power. And it's the same thing for both men and women coming into their power, is that depending on what happened in the lineage and the karmic patterns, the trauma, the relationship of polarity, which I call this ancestral polarity, we're going to be afraid of our power. Right? And I think as men, when we think about contacting like the killer inside of us, it's that primal rage, which is a necessary part of being able to be in our power and being able to give ourselves permission to be in our power. The same thing with women, that they might fear they're going to get lost in their intensity, the full volume and intensity of their emotions. They feel they'll never be, and so we fear this. And so that has to be looked at an ancestral level and understand how those patterns happened at an ancestral level. And this anger really starts to come into our body and space when the ancestors begin to leave. So when the ancestors begin to leave, when we begin to heal the ancestral field, that's when we begin to access more of that primal rage, which means we don't have the cords and threads of the ancestral patterns in our body and space. And we're able to be in the full totality of our unhinged source essence without the contraction or influence or hooking in from the ancestors. And now we're able to create a new imprint. We're able to create a new imprint, and we're able to show our ancestors that, hey, this power is good. This power is good. And the way you actually deal with that is that you have to get angry at your ancestors. You have to tell your ancestors to fuck off. You have to tell your ancestors that this is my house now, bitch. This is my space. You got to go. And you show them that it can actually be a healthy embodiment of that. And now anger becomes the space where you build, where you're creating something that has never existed before. Like, anger is about building a container, right? So if we're in a healthy integration of our anger, it means we're going to have a very strong and sovereign energetic container. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Because we've got good boundaries. We understand our boundaries. We feel our boundaries. We'll protect our boundaries.
100%, right? And so you think about like an energetic container is like internal and external boundaries. Internal boundaries is like, where do we overstep our own code of conduct, our own belief in what's within integrity to us? What ways does our ego leak energy? What ways do we overstep our own container? That's gonna create like an internal aggression, which is probably going to show up as shame. If we're someone who really oversteps our own internal boundaries, we're probably going to like feel a lot of shame, a lot of internalized aggression, which is really, if you think about, that's just like shame is placeholding for anger that we haven't been able to utilize, right? And then external boundaries, how do we allow other people to come into our space? What we do to protect our field. And so really moving into a really healthy integration of our anger, I look at it as three components. You have the mother wound, the father wound, and the ancestral field. So it's working with the energetic imprints of the mother wound, the father wound, and the energetic imprint of your ancestors. And so being able to clear those imprints really allows your container to be more sovereign and for your relationship to your anger to be cleaner. And it can actually be utilized. Because like anger, you're building something, you're amplifying. Grief is clearing, anger is building. Grief is clearing the foundation so the house of the energetics of anger can build and create something.
Got it. Because we carry a lot of grief, right? So when we clear the grief, is that like expanding the capacity to kind of hold the anger, the boundaries, the power.
Totally, right? Like grief is creating space. You're creating space to access more of your essence, more of who you are, more of the totality and full volume of your potential, your energetic potential as a human being can be accessed because of the grief, which will allow you to show up with a cleaner relationship to anger, because the grief and the clearing of the grief, you're now beginning to move into more of the vibration that I'm worthy. I'm worthy to be protected. So you're moving the pain, the hurt through your body. And now what's alchemizing and what's coming is that you're telling yourself, I am someone who is worthy to be protected. And you start to want to create boundaries because it's coming from an increased sense of self-worth because of the amount of grief that you sat with, which has cleared and opened up space.
Got it. So the anger is also closely linked to self-worth as well.
Totally. Anger is self-worth. Like our relationship to anger shows us our relationship to our worthiness.
So when we have low self-worth, we don't protect our boundaries. We don't assert ourselves in the world. We don't go after the things we want because we're filled with grief and we don't have enough anger to like propel us forward.
Yeah. Like think about it. Like anger is a distinction. When someone has a really healthy relationship with anger, they're really distinct in who they are. This is who I am. This is who I'm not. This is what I believe in. This is what I don't believe in. This is what I want to do. This is what I don't want to do. Think about someone with a really healthy relationship with anger. They're very distinct in who they are in the world, which means people are going to really see who you are, which means you're going to really be okay with taking up space. You're going to be okay with being very clear about who you are, which at the very core of that, if we don't feel that we have a lot of self-worth, if we don't have a lot of self-belief, if we don't have a lot of self-trust, we won't be able to live in that distinction. We're going to live in a very muted, vanillified middle ground where we don't have to be distinct, where we don't have to be seen as much. We don't have to be rejected or chosen, right? Because usually when we live distinctly, it's opening up for active choice of being chosen and claimed or being rejected and being off-putting to people. And so we'll usually live in that very murky middle ground as a way to self-preserve, a way to protect. Again, comes back down to the attachment ruptures, because when we really, really clear the field, we're okay with being distinct because we've died such a deep death that we're okay in living in the misunderstanding of other people. And we're fine with being distinct about who we are. This is who I am and this is who I'm not. Run towards me or run away from me. Right?
Yeah. And then also, I imagine when we step into that power of our anger, conflict shifts its meaning. When we're in that murky world, from what you're saying, it's like conflict's something to be avoided, right? Something to like run away from, because that means people are poking and prodding, and your self-worth is being shown that you're wrong or you don't know, or you might experience rejection. But when we step into this power of our anger, our full capacity of anger, conflict shifts its meaning. Like what does conflict shift into in that space?
Well, so when you come into healthy integration of your anger, you're not afraid of conflict. Conflict happens more frequently, but it happens differently, right? So conflict happens and it's cleaner, and you have the capacity and capability to work through it faster and more directly. And so when you do move into healthy integration of anger, it actually is welcoming a certain amount more conflict in your life. But the conflict that comes becomes a greater capacity to create what you want and who you are. Because think about it, you move into a healthy integration of your anger, it's going to reveal more deeply how people actually feel about you. Think about just people around you. If you move into a really healthy integration of your anger, strong boundaries, a real strong polarizing distinction of who you are, it's going to really separate who's for you and who's not for you. And so while that might feel like conflict, because maybe all these people you thought were your friends unfollowed you, but you're going to be revealed something. Okay. Now I've moved into more deeper of my truth. I've kind of plowed down deeper into my truth, which is reveal things a lot faster and a lot more intentionally. And now you can really begin to create more alignment, more truth, more of a strong container. And you really learn things quickly. And so that level of distinction allows you to create more potently, right? It allows you to be very much more intentional rather than your energies leaking in a million different ways. And it's really that safe middle ground. You're being very intentional and you're building something that is more structured and has more depth and volume to it.
And then I imagine when you step into that level of power and that's distinction, there's a very clear picture of like who you are, what you stand for, what you're about. That also magnetizes people who resonate with you and your message or what you're trying to create and build.
100%, right? So it's polarizing, right? It's kind of like becoming a lighthouse. Like say if you're a teacher or you're a leader, when you're in that frequency, you become a lighthouse. Your lighthouse becomes more illuminated. So people who are travelers, moving through the dark ocean, you become more illuminated for them to find you. So people internally are built with more of a distinct experience of how does this feel and how does this land in my body, and it probably clarifies more of their yes or more of their no. So it actually brings them more of an internal distinction. And so often we're afraid of this, but we don't do anything great without this. We don't build something that's great without this. We build something that might be good, might be mediocre. You definitely don't build great art from this place. You definitely don't, because, if we're talking about making art, you got to make it through a total distinction of who you are. And other people whether resonate with your way or they won't resonate. That's why like great art is polarizing, because you're making a very, very distinct choice about something. And this is something that we're always afraid of relationally. And so we have to get so comfortable with rejection. So comfortable with rejection.
Yeah. And that's one of the kind of common, really core wounds for men is like that, the not enoughness and the rejection. We step into our power. Rejection doesn't occur as rejection. It just occurs of like people making a choice for themselves. Like, they don't want my salad. They want chips. Great. I'm happy for them. I want them to choose what they want.
Yeah. Like it even begins to remove the charge. Where like, say you're like totally moving to your power and like, say someone like unfollows you or like, you're like, I get it. I understand. We're operating in totally different paradigms, not one that's better than the other, but I'm being very distinct about who I am, and it just doesn't resonate for you. It doesn't feel good for you. My energy doesn't feel good for you. And so I want you to leave my space if that's the case. Because you don't want anyone to be in your space where it doesn't feel good. But you're like, I get it. Someone doesn't like you. It's like, I get it. I understand. And like, you can kind of have enough awareness that you see them and understand what works for them and their world. And you get why they wouldn't like you. And so it's that level of understanding. And so the charge is not as personalized. And I think that's so important as we move on the spiritual path. This is a question I'm always asking myself. Is me and this person, are we in the same paradigm or are we not? Are we on the same timeline or are we not on the same timeline? What that really means is how you orient your level of consciousness, what you constitute. Is this the same paradigm as someone or is this different? And think about your closest friends. The most soul resonant friends are going to be the ones where you have very similar paradigms that you operate in, very similar frameworks for consciousness. You know, some of your second tier friends might be, there's partial overlap. We're sort of in the same paradigm, right? And then acquaintances might be people you really like, but you're in different paradigms. That's kind of like a spiritual way to look at orienting relationships. And so it's just being very distinct about the path that you're going down, where you're called and how that shows up. And so that all comes from anger. That all comes from anger because we're making a distinction and we're making a choice.
And it's interesting because as you say anger, like, you know, even I have been programmed with a picture of what anger is. And it doesn't, like, I don't use the word anger, but like how it lands for me, it's almost like, it feels like leadership, you know, like an energy of leadership, of like clarity and leadership. Like, this is what I want. This is what I'm about. Exactly. I'm moving forward towards it. Because when we think of anger, we think of like angry dad or angry God in the Bible, like, you know, swearing and shouting and throwing bottles. But it's not that energy. There's like a calm to this. There's a calm. There's a deliberateness to the movements and the choices and the boundaries and distincting oneself. It's like an internal, it just feels like clarity and leadership. Yeah.
Yeah, David, that's exactly it, right? Because at this point, we've really sat with so much anger. We built such a embodied relationship to it that it doesn't show up as what we're talking about. Because we fully allowed it to live as a birthright in our body. And so it's very much clarity, authenticity. It comes from the place of, this is who I am, and this is what I'm about, and this is what I'm here to do. That's like where it comes from. When it becomes really embodied, it's about that person really knows who they are. That's really what it is. And I can really tell who that person is. They're really clear about who they are. Like, there's no guessing. Like, who is this person? It's like, oh, like I get a sense of who that person is. That's anger integrated as an energetic frequency. Now you get to build a kingdom that is distinctly authentic to the authenticity of who you are as a human being and what your mission is and who you're here to serve. That's what happens. And now when anger comes up, it's not this fully eruptive volcanic eruption that overtakes your whole body and is destructive and aggressive. Now it's comes from this declaration. How can we amplify greater? How can we move into a greater connection, a greater power for all involved? And so the energy becomes of service.
Yeah. Beautiful, man. That's really powerful, like shift in lens of like looking, you know, we've got this imprint of anger, but it's just like it's service, it's love, it's connection, it's like creation.
100%. Life force, you know, so like when it hits us, like, and when you first build a relationship to this, like for me, it's kind of like, I want to get in the fight. Like, I want to go fight a fucking cougar. I want to go into the mountains. I want to take a cougar down. Where's a fucking cougar? Like, that is how it hits your body at first. It's a little bit manic. And what that really is, it's kind of like God. Like, imagine God is like wearing a bunch of chains and got some sunglasses on, is like in a car with hydraulics, like playing some gangster rap. Like, that's how the energy hits your body. It's like, whoa, baby. It's like you got that cocaine God in your system all of a sudden. But then it alchemizes and integrates. Like it's some gangster swagger when it hits your space. It's kind of like, you're like, I'm a G, motherfucker. Like that's how it hits your space. But then it integrates and it alchemizes and it creates more of this holistic sort of embodied vibration that isn't in that space. But when it hits you, it's kind of like when you begin to feel yourself in that way, it is kind of like God is literally a G. Like God is like a drug dealer in your body. Like that is kind of the energy of how it initially hits. And then it integrates, and then it becomes more digestible, more of service, more heart-centered, more holistic. But it shows up a little manic frequency. And what that really is that's kind of like just unbridled, unhinged, sacred life force energy, unintegrated in the body, just showing up.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah, I love the I love the analogy. It's God is a drug dealer in your body.
Well, like it's kind of like all of a sudden there's a knock at the door, and you open the door. It's like, put your fucking hands up, and like a whole fucking SWAT team comes and searches the house. That's literally the energy. That's how your body feels as that person who opened the door unexpectedly, and there's a whole SWAT team coming in. Like that's how it shows up, and you're like, what the fuck just happened? Like that's how primal sacred rage initially shows up, and you're like, this is crazy, and you're like, yeah, like I need to fight someone before 3:00 today, and it's like I've never been in a fight. Like what am I even talking about? Obviously, you don't want to fight. This is just a comical inflation of the energy, but it does feel like that, and that's what, as a woman and a man, what happens when you start to feel yourself. It's like, let's go, daddy, let's go. That's why I'm always saying, gang, gang, daddy. It's kind of that in kind of the name of that energy. When you really start to feel yourself, it's like gang, gang, baby, like gang.
Full of life force. You're like feeling
like,
yourself, feeling life.
It's like, let's go. Like, let's go unhinged. Like, let's go all the way. Let's do it,
Oh, well, I think we could talk about this for hours, but I'm mindful of the time. And, what a beautiful conversation to just look at things from like a really different space, especially the anger. It's not a way we look at anger. We look at anger as this terrifying and bad way. It's a really revolutionary way to look at anger. Yeah, I really love it. I really love it. It's something I want to integrate into my own life a bit more. And I imagine the listeners are wondering where they can hear more from you, they can work with you, be more in your space and your energy.
Totally. So Instagram, and I don't know if you're going to include that in the show notes, but Instagram at Jamie, JAMIE .n.rea, REA. So that's my Instagram. My website's being reconstructed, but it should be live right now. We're about third week of September. In about 5 weeks, my new website with all sort of my offerings will be there. So until that point, Instagram would be the best place to sort of check out some of my posts, get a feel for the distinction of my energy, and be like, is this for me or is it not for me? Do I want to fucking run towards them, or do I want to run away from them? You know what I mean? That's what we want to do. We want people to run towards us, to be like, yeah, or be like, fuck no, I hate this person.
And I'm also going to just tell the listeners about your YouTube, right? Because you got some really beautiful lives in there. I've dug into a couple of them. And you really transmit a beautiful energy in there and some wonderful wisdom on various different topics.
Oh, thank you so much, man. Yeah. So YouTube is another place. I do right now, at least. This might change, but I drop one video a week, and I do 2 YouTube lives every week, Mondays and Fridays at 12 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, which is probably the middle of the night for any Europeans in your audience who are listening. It's about kind of at the time we're ending this podcast, but YouTube, I'm consistently posting there. So that's another place. So yes, YouTube and Instagram would be the 2 places. And I'm just Jamie Ray, just my name on YouTube. You should be able to find me if you search hard and long enough.
Awesome. Well, thank you, brother, for a wonderful conversation. Listeners, if there's someone that really could do with this, and there's many men out here that needs to look at anger in a very different way, especially the nice guys and the guys who suppressed it all their lives, share the love, man. Send it over to them. Send over, because it's a beautiful act of service and love to someone to provide them, to gift them with information and knowledge that's going to serve them in their lives. Wow.
Thanks so much, David. You have a beautiful energy, brother.
Thank you, man. And listeners, I'll say ciao, ciao. I want to say a big thank you for listening. It's people like yourself that really help get the podcast out into the world, especially if you're often sharing the episodes and the podcast with people that you feel just could do with listening, right? Can see a different way of being a man, maybe a different way of having dating lives and intimacy and relationships. So I want to say a big thank you. And if maybe after listening to this episode, you think, oh, there's someone actually who could really do with this, please share it with them, share the love. I'm really, really grateful. And if, you want to get in contact with me for any questions, or you want to talk about coaching or any working together, feel free to reach out to me on Instagram at @theauthenticman_, or you can email me hello@theauthenticman.net. Thank you very much.